Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. And I'm really thrilled to be here with this awesome panel talking about holiday anthologies in the romance world. So I'm going to introduce everybody, but before I get to that, I just wanted to tell you a few things. This program is being recorded and live streamed on Facebook. So you can put your questions in the Q&A here, or if you're on Facebook, you can put questions there. Now, use the chat for comments, and for tech issues, I'll be paying attention to that. I'd like to thank the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. We couldn't do this fun stuff without them. And you can buy signed books from our authors from Bank Square Books, and I'll put the link in the chat for that as well. It's holiday season. Signed books are gold anytime, but now they're like double platinum gold, whatever that is. Okay, so let's get started. Today we have authors Eva Moore, Preslaysa Williams, R.L. Merrill, and Kilby Blades with us to discuss, as I said, the appeals of the romance holiday anthology. And instead of doing like long intros, I'm just going to give you a little tidbit of each of our authors that I found interesting on their website. Eva Moore met her husband while reading Julie Garwood, and I will be asking her which book. Preslaysa Williams, also Preslaysa Edwards, is an award-winning author, but also a professional actress. So I'm going to wonder at some point today, if her books became movies, would she want to star in one of them? Talk about melding the two worlds. R.L. Merrill, in addition to being a kick-butt author, writes horror-infused music reviews for horroraddicts.net. And I'm definitely going to want to know more about that. Kilby Blades is a feminist, an enophile, a cinephile, a social justice fighter, and above all else, a glutton for a good story. And I had to look up at least one of those words when I was writing this. I'm going to say it's enophile. So at some point, if you want to tell us what that all means, please do. So I'm just going to throw in a question, and you guys can go to town, and whenever I have an opportunity to throw in another question, I will. And again, anybody who's asking questions in the audience, feel free to put them in the Q&A. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I know for some of you, it is the crack of dawn. So I'm just going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourselves, other than my little brief intro.
So it is the crack of dawn out here in the West Coast. Yeah. So, excuse me if it's a little dark outside still. I'm Eva, and I live in the Bay Area with my 3 kids and my wonderful husband, who I did meet while reading Julie Garwood. We went to college together, and I was avoiding studying for my midterms with this big hardback of Ransom. And he came up and asked, like, hey, what you reading? And I'm like, for real, my dude? Like, I am sitting on a bench outside reading at our college. Like, what do you care? Why? And I was like, I'm reading a romance novel. He's like, oh. And he sits down next to me. What's it about? And I was like, okay, you have passed test number 1. Okay. Snark or anything. You got a first date.
Cool.
Awesome.
Who's next?
Well, K is next in the alphabet. So Kilby, go next.
So I also live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and probably, I mean, the thing to know about me is that I've been writing forever. I started out writing fan fiction back in the late 90s. And that's where my writing career really started. Always was interested in romance, and always just loved, because I'm a big cinephile. Part of being a cinephile is being a movie enthusiast, and I'm also a television enthusiast. And I've been able to see romance everywhere I go. So the fan fiction I was writing, it was like, there would be a couple, and they weren't really making them a couple on screen. So I'd be like, clearly these people belong together. So I would make them a couple. So I think that's probably the biggest thing to know about me, is that I can see romance everywhere I go, and that's how I end up imagining these characters in situations where people fall in love with one another.
I love that.
That's your superpower.
He is next. Preslaysa.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Preslaysa Williams. I live in Virginia. So I'm on East Coast time. So it's not that early for me. I'm a mom of 2 children, married for a long time. Can't remember right now. I started writing when my oldest, who's 11, was a newborn because I needed like a creative outlet. So that's when I really started writing fiction. It was more just to like give my brain a break from the mom brain cycle of having a newborn and everything. It wasn't really to like get published or anything. But as I kept writing, I said, oh, you know what? I'm doing this so much, I need to get published. So one day I need to get published. So then it just kind of morphed into writing books and pitching and doing all that writerly stuff. And then as I just kept doing it, I just got more and more serious about it. And it became less of a hobby and more of a career. So that's how I started with writing. And that's about it. That's all I can think of for now. We could talk about the acting stuff during the course of our conversation, but I'll leave it to RL.
Hi, you can call me Ro. I also live in the Bay Area. Yay. And the sun is not fully out yet. We're still waiting for sunrise, and it's 37 degrees outside at my house. That's rare for the Bay Area. Like, I mean, we do get here in the winter, but like, whew, that's really cold. You asked about the horror infused music reviews. I guess one of the biggest things about me is I'm a huge music junkie. I love all kinds of music. But I also particularly love horror. And so one of my writing pals, Emery-Ann Rich, she runs a podcast called horroraddicts.net. And we got to talking, and she's like, yeah, we really could use a new music reviewer because I get all these, submissions from artists and bands and stuff. And so I've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. We're on hiatus right now, and she's actually changing the format of the blog, and she's going to do a magazine starting next year. So that's really exciting. So I pick some of the music that I review, and then we get a lot of submissions from any artists that are on the darker side. So a lot of industrial, a lot of emo, a lot of dark wave, goth music, that kind of stuff. So, which is oftentimes not what I listen to on a regular basis. So it's really fun. And I found some really cool bands actually that I do listen to all the time now. So I really enjoy that. Music, I go to concerts all the time, write music into my stories. In fact, our little collaborative effort here, Worst Holiday Ever, my story in that anthology has a musician in it. So yeah, so that's me.
Thank you.
And I have 2 black cats and a black lab, and so you will see them creeping around in the back. I think that was Dracula. Frankenstein's over here by the window.
Thank you. I don't know if other people are having issues, Ro, with your sound, but I think when you're moving around when you're talking, it kind of clips in and out. So sorry.
I'll try not to move. I'm not good at staying still, but I'll try.
Okay. Just for those moments when you're speaking. Thank you for mentioning the anthology that you all wrote for The Worst Holiday Ever, which is super cute. And I think there's a lot of authors involved in that. And I was really glad that you came forward to say you would talk about it. Can you all talk about what the process of creating that particular anthology was for you? And I know it's been a while since it came out, so you can make stuff up and we won't know.
Well, Kilby, do you want to start on this one? Because you were kind of the spearheader of the effort. This was your baby that you brought us into.
Sure. Well, the holidays for me have always been a fun / hilarious time because I have a lot of colorful family members, and I am also married. So I grew up in a colorful family, then I married into another colorful family. So I always have all of these people in my life who I'm like, oh, they need to be in a book. So the idea for the holiday anthology just came from wanting to write a holiday story, but not necessarily wanting to commit to a full-length novel, because a book is a big commitment. And think, I just had the idea, worst holiday ever, funny holiday rom-com would be a great sort of theme. And then I, gathered up some folks and said, hey, would you want to write a short holiday story? Because I think it could be a fun collection. And I think it could be a collection that sort of acknowledges that some people don't love the holidays, and be something that's a little different from all of the like super happy holiday stories that are out there, but also romancy and fun in its own way.
I jumped at the chance to work on this project because I had just finished the second book in my Exposed Dreams series, and the happily ever after kind of wraps up on Halloween. And so when Kilby was like, hey, could you write the worst Christmas ever, the worst holiday ever? And I was like, oh, they're about to have their first Christmas and they're still a newish couple. I could absolutely write this. And this is what's going to happen. And I'm not going to say who, but an ex and one of my family members absolutely appear in my story, and they are hilarious. It was very cathartic to write it.
For me, if Kilby says jump, I'll say how high. Like anytime I will work with her. And this was a blast. And then we followed it up with the worst Valentine's Day ever. And I'm waiting for the worst wedding date. We had a whole list at one point of future potential stories. So at some point we got to get back to those. I actually chose Thanksgiving for this anthology, and my story is called Thanksgiving Parade from Hell. And being a parent who married a child of divorced parents, at one point we had 7, and they weren't all together with each other. And so holidays are always tense. There's always drama. They used to all do well in the same room, and now I'm finding that's not the case. So life is going to imitate art, because we kind of have been, we're going to be traveling to other people and visiting them for Christmas this year, because I'm just not putting them together anymore. But in my story, it's the two guys are going from one house to the next house to the next house, and through each you kind of get a sense of how holidays are tough, how they are a struggle, and how they kind of bring out those things about yourself that, those little sensitive parts, those little, wounds that you try to cover up the rest of the year, and then they just magically get the Band-Aid ripped off on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So but it's also funny. There's a turkey frying incident, like that always goes bad, right? Put a bunch of dudes in charge of frying a turkey, and it's going to be bad.
Well, when I wrote my story, I was attracted to this opportunity because I could do something unconventional. So for me, that unconventionality came with the type of holiday that I featured. So for the worst holiday ever anthology, I featured Kwanzaa. And I had a wedding day that wasn't. So those were two different things that I was excited about featuring in this anthology. And it was also the first time that I had something, well, not the first time, like the second time that I had something published that other readers would be reading. So it was exciting for me all around to do those two things, the Kwanzaa and having the wedding day that wasn't, and figuring out how was I going to have a happily ever after, because that's what romance is, with that in the plot line. So yeah.
You're muted.
Oh yeah, I muted myself because I was finished.
That was me. I was muted because I was
Oh, my bad.
such a good host. I want to go back to Kilby to ask you, how did you choose who you were going to ask to be part of this? Because this is really different from my understanding of anthologies. I thought the publisher put authors together.
Well, we're all indie, so the publisher did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kilby's the
Yes.
publisher.
Yeah, in this case, I am the publisher, and actually all of the anthologies that I've worked on. So this is the first anthology I've worked on, but in the meantime, I've worked on 4 anthologies, and all of the anthologies that I've worked on are author organized. You know, when I thought about who I wanted on the project, I thought of folks who I thought had sort of could go with the vision, if that makes any sense, right? So it really wasn't about genre, because there are people on the anthology who write in different genres, like Erin St. Charles writes paranormal. It wasn't all contemporary authors. It wasn't all authors who are writing het romance necessarily. It was more about who is the author? What do I think their voice is? What do I think that they could bring something to a story like this? Which is actually pretty opposite. Most anthologies are really organized by genre.
That's right.
So if you look at like the old school, like the Avon Christmas anthologies that would come out once a year, and you've got 4 authors on the cover, right? And then the fonts go from large to small, right? Those were absolutely marketing decisions made by Avon. Let's take our top authors and pair them with 2 of our more mid-list or struggling authors to build their readership, because everybody's going to buy a Julie Garwood, and then they'll read the others and hopefully bring new readers to that author, right? And in some cases, that is still how the publishers decide who gets to be part of the anthologies. I do know that there are more and more, even in TradPub, traditional publishing, where authors who are under contract are asking, hey, can I go do this without the publishers like taking control of it? Like, they're starting to do some more of the author-driven anthologies as well, which is really interesting, I think. Just because they want to work with their friends.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of charity anthologies. There are a lot of, I don't know if there's a category for these, but I remember there was a whole incident in Romance Land called Cocky Gate, where an author tried to some trademark the word cocky. So then you had all of these authors who kind of clapped back with this anthology. I think it was called Cocky Bastard or something like that. Like, you have anthologies that sort of pop up for a number of reasons. And I agree. I see more and more authors making sure that they're not so beholden to their publishers that they can't go off and do projects like these.
My former publisher would do, I don't think they're doing it anymore, but they used to do an Advent calendar. I guess it's not a calendar. They would do an Advent collection for the holidays that were all themed stories. And so you would get a story, you could buy the whole package, which was like 20 something books, or you could just buy the individual titles. And so they would come out one every day for the month of December. And that was a really fun way to kind of have a bunch of stories with a similar theme. I participated in the homemade for the holidays. And so all of our books had some aspect of something homemade. And that was a really cool experience. And in the past, they had done like warm for the holidays. And so like all the stories were set someplace where it was warm. So you don't necessarily think about snow and all that. So there were some that were like on the beach. There was one that was at an amusement park in Florida that was kind of kitschy, and it was super fun. So that I liked that idea too. Shared universe collections with authors are always fun, but I like having the theme. And I think that's what made our anthology so special, is that we had that theme of, what's the worst thing that can happen on a holiday, and make it fun and make it romantic at the same time. And I just thought it was very unique. And I think we still get readers that pick up the book and oh my gosh, this was, this is the kind of stories that I'm looking for, because for a lot of us, yeah, it's fun to escape into the Hallmark land and everything is pretty and tied up with a bow at the end, but for, that's not reality for most people. And so sometimes you get a kick out of reading somebody's similar experience and go, oh, they get it. It's not just me.
I think for Warm for the Holidays, a paranormal one would be like in hell or something.
Could be.
Preslaysa, do you have some thoughts on this?
With regards to
how you got picked for a particular anthology?
Well, I was kind of surprised that I was picked because at the time when Kilby asked me, I was totally unpublished. Like Ro and Eva and Kilby were all multi-published authors. They all like I was writing fiction, but I wasn't like published either in like the indie or trad pub. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like one of the first things that is going to be out there on Amazon and people are going to read it and review it. And so I was kind of nervous. I was nervous because there were deadlines and I couldn't drop the ball because then I would like be letting down everyone else in the anthology. So yeah, it was my first foray into having a deadline, into writing something publishable and to having my work out there and being read by other people who weren't my relatives or friends. So it was a very exciting and nerve-wracking and but it was really good because it was my first step into being an author. So yeah.
And once it was done, then I can do this.
Yeah.
Well,
you kind of think you can do it until you have to write another book. And then you're like, what the hell? I could do something else with my life. Why am I doing this? This is crazy. But whatever.
That could be a whole nother session.
Yeah.
Which tells me that Preslaysa is in the drafting phase of writing right now.
Yeah.
I know that feeling real well.
That's funny. So I was going to say, and even I talked about this when we first talked about doing this panel, was that the thing I love about this anthology is its diversity. Like it's diverse authors, it's diverse holidays, it's diverse. It's not just historicals, it's a mix of paranormal, contemporary, all of that. And so like, do you guys think that this is I don't want to call it a trend. I want it to be the norm. How can we make that happen?
I think that was one of the intentions around calling it the worst holiday ever. And Kilby was very clear when she sent out the brief, like, I want this to be diverse. I want you to pick different holidays. I want you to have, whatever, pardon me, whatever combination sparks your imagination. But it was always understood that this was going to be a deliberate step to putting on page and putting into a holiday anthology, like all the stuff that we weren't seeing on Hallmark, on Lifetime. And I was very, very excited to be part of a project that was like specifically going to do that, because I do think that the only way to make it not a trend is to keep doing it, right? So that it becomes what's expected in the genre.
And what I liked about this anthology in particular, and the worst Valentine's Day ever one, is the diversity was diverse.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is you'll take like a subsection of diversity, I'm putting in a quote, diversity, and then you'll just put them all together in one anthology. We had cis het romances, we had LGBTQ romance, we had different holidays, we had different heat levels, we had different subgenres of romance. the central theme was like having it the worst holiday ever, but under that it was like different. You could see like all the different facets of diversity. It wasn't just like, here are all like the Black authors, here are all the Asian authors, here are all the LGBTQ authors. It was just everything together, and so I like that too.
Well, and I also think it was a great way to bring in readers who maybe don't read LGBTQ or don't read interracial romance or don't read paranormal, or you know, like into a book where you're just going to read the next story because these are great. They're like candy, they're short and getting into it, and then you read it and maybe it breaks down a barrier. Maybe you read it and you're like, oh, maybe I do like these books. Maybe I'll pick something else up by this author. I really like that like you said, the diversity was diverse.
Well, and short isn't as much of a commitment for the reader either, which is really refreshing. I mean, that's what I like about, you know, like books are commitments, and, you know, readers do feel like if they pick up a book, they want it to be great. They want to be sure they're going to like it. And that, you know, when you're trying something new, you're not sure you're going to want to read a, you know, vampire menage holiday rom-com, right?
Well, now I do.
I do.
You need that in your life.
Right. So yeah, I think that variety is really cool. I think one of the challenges that I've seen just as an author who's really proud of the collections is, you know, it is tough when you get readers who are like upset that there's something in there that they didn't want to read, right? So I think that's one of the things that's true of genre fiction. You have people who like what they like, and they get a little grumpy if there's anything that they don't like in a story, because they want to go in and read something that they like. But I think that, yeah, for folks who are open to like, yeah, what I'm connecting to is the theme. I'm connecting to that like holiday disaster theme. Who are open to reading different things. That's really who the anthologies are for. Same thing for Valentine's Day, right? The Valentine's Day one. Like Valentine's Day is really sad for some people, right? But you know, reading Valentine's Day rom-com can be really healing.
It lets you be a part of the story without, you know, like you can kind of playing your own spin on it as you're reading, and you can cheer for the people to overcome the obstacles and stuff, and instead of sitting there going, I don't have a Valentine this year, or, you know, because it is stressful for a lot of people. Like they are not, you know, they don't love it. What I like about an anthology like this too is I like to try new authors, but sometimes I don't want to commit to a whole full-length novel, or I don't have time, but at least it gives me a taste of their writing style. And then I might decide who I'm gonna, you know, what I want to read next. And so I think it does give people a chance to kind of go, oh, well, I know this story is going to be about A. And so, and I like A, but do I like their voice? And if you do, great. And if not, you haven't lost anything if you know there are other authors in the collection that you like. So
how many anthologies have you all been part of?
For me, three.
Four.
Three for me.
I said 4 before, but then I realized it was 5.
Okay. And is it usually around holiday time, or is it any?
No.
I'm half and half.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I have 7. No, I have about 9 or 10 that are a whole variety of, you know, Eva and I did Down and Dirty, that was all like
blue collar heroes. I did one that was I did one that was Wicked Gods. That was the first one that I did. It was you know, kind of like your naughty bad boys from, you know, paranormal universe. That was my first time writing and publishing a paranormal story, and I was delighted to know that I could do it. And I've done a couple of horror anthologies.
I have a queer anthology that I'm a part of each year for Pride called Love Is All. I've done 3 volumes of that, and then next year will be the 5th one that we do, and Zio Axelrod heads up that one, and I think she has some ideas that she hasn't shared with us yet, so I'll be waiting to hear kind of what that's going to be. But that's a nice way to kind of try out a story idea that maybe you're not sure, you know, what's the audience for. I also, you know, write a variety of pairings, and so I like to kind of experiment a little bit in those stories. And so I think that's the same thing with an anthology, that depending on the theme or who you're working with, the freedom that you get to kind of try something new, I think is fun as an author. It's really fun. The horror anthologies were super fun. The first one was dark divination, so there had to be some form of divination in the story, and I had never done anything like that. And so I went looking through my, you know, cultural background and found bread, like using bread and to tell, what's it called? There, I'm already, it's early, but basically it goes dating back to the Greeks. They would make this sort of bread, and if you ate it and it made you sick, that meant you were lying about something. And so, so that was, I read about that and I was like, ooh, I could do this. And then this past year, we did Haunts and Hellions, and it had to have a Gothic theme. And so I wrote a Gothic story that was actually set here in the Bay Area, that was like a kind of my ode to Edgar Allan Poe. So
I love him.
Again, you get to try to do different things and push yourself as an author. And so I think that's a great way to look at anthologies as well.
And sometimes it's nice to like step out of your, I don't know about the rest of you, but I write in series. And so I'm usually like on a 4-book track that I cannot really deviate from, and the books are going to be longer and it takes me a while to write them. So when you get an offer to be part of an anthology and you can write something that's only 20K or, you know, 12K in some cases, with a fun prompt, like, oh, do this. And then you have to figure out like, okay, am I going to integrate that into the world that I'm on the train track for over here? Or am I going to do something completely different? And you can take like a month and kind of step out and work on it. And it kind of refreshes your brain a little bit for your main projects, which is nice. A lot of the anthologies that I've been a part of have like cycled in and out of publication. And so like I'm only signing rights for that story for say a year, and then I get it back. So now I have all of these shorter stories that kind of fit in around my larger books that I can use to like, I'll give you this story if you sign up for my newsletter, or if you buy the paperback, this story is in the back. There's like a bonus novella. So it's a really nice way to kind of flesh out the worlds that I'm building in a less committal way than writing another full-length novel.
I would
Absolutely.
say that's also,
Absolutely.
that's the benefit of doing an indie anthology, because if you do an indie anthology, it's not like a publisher who's going to want to retain the rights to that work. You can go off and do something with it and kind of publish it independently or turn it into something else. So you're writing a story for an anthology, but then the story sort of keeps on. It's something that you can continue to use and that you can continue to share if you sort of own the rights to it yourself.
Yeah. So the anthologies that you write, there's 2 different kinds. One is where there's a theme and everybody writes according to the theme. And the other one is where it's connected in some way. They're all at a house party and there's like some thread that goes through, and you know, one author ends and then one author picks up. Do you have a preference? Like which one's easier, which one's better?
I don't think you can say which one is better. Like
as a reader, I can say which one's better for me.
they both have their charms. I would probably say the first one is easier to write when you all have a theme, when you just go off and do your own and come back and they meld. Working in a connected world can be very challenging. One of the projects that I organized, it was an anthology that came out of a fantasy ball that I created. It's an event that I run every year. And we had decided that it was going to be a contemporary ball. It was going to happen over New Year's Eve. This was the charity that it was supporting. And like this was like the timeline of the evening. And then everybody wrote a story set in that same phone booth, you know? And that was really challenging, because when somebody would write something happening and then it didn't show up in another story, that dissonance was a little jarring for the reader, who was like, but there was an explosion and you're still dancing. Like, so that was definitely harder to write. I will say that, but it was a great opportunity for a bunch of first-time authors to get their work published in a like low pressure kind of environment.
Yeah, I'm part of a couple of different shared world projects, and they are definitely more challenging. The first one I did was with two of my girlfriends, and we kind of created this historical horror scenario, and we wrote stories about a group of brothers that left the Utah territory in the 1800s and went to go find silver in Nevada, and they found something else. And so it was kind of dark and scary, and all of our stories had a little bit of a different vibe, but we discovered as we went, we thought, oh, we'll just write it, you know, and they'll be all connected and maybe we'll have some scene, but we were newbie writers, and so we weren't really sure what we were getting into. So, but the first book turned out okay, and the second book has kind of been on hold for a while. And then I also write stories in the Magic and Mayhem universe for Robin Peterman, and her world is super wacky that she created, and there's enough things on the playground for everybody to play with. So our stories are not related to each other, but they all take place in a shared world. And Kilby just did a project like that too. So maybe she can talk a little bit about it. The more open it is when you have those overlapping scenes, like Eva talked about, that becomes more of a challenge. But if it's just kind of shared characters, or happens in a same place, but maybe not at the same time, that makes it a little easier.
I feel like what I like participating in anthologies where there are fewer requirements. I can't speak to whether I have a preference for reading them, but just from a creative perspective, it feels easier to be able to sort of figure out how I'm gonna do it without too many constraints. Just as part of my own creative process. So the anthology that Rose talking about was called Tinsel and Tatas, in benefit of breast cancer. And
follow up to Jingle Balls.
Yeah, which is the year before that was called Jingle Balls, which supported testicular cancer. So the common thread for both of those was an event. So in the Tinsel and Tatas, every story had to have a scene that took place at the Tinsel and Tatas ball. And then in the first one, it was every story had to have a scene that took place in the Jingle Ball and had to mention, sort of the cause of testicular cancer or breast cancer. So I like the variety. I think that when it's really tied together, that's one experience, but I actually feel that creative people are sort of at the best when they can sort of write in the way that they write.
I've only done themed anthologies, so I don't have any experience with doing like a continuity type story. So I can only say that I like themed.
So I have a question. This is super personal, and anybody who knows me knows that I cannot read books out of order. And most anthologies take some aspect of an ongoing story, and it's a short story based on a world that's already created. Do you ever create or anthologies where that it's all new stories?
My story for Valentine's, Worst Valentine's Ever, was a standalone. It's not part of an existing universe. But to speak to that annoyance that I know you feel when you're like, God, they're talking about characters who already exist in this. You would be surprised how many readers then go, well, of course I need to know what happened in their story, and that's how anthologies work. So it's working if it's working.
I literally have to put the book down though, so I can go and read all of the other ones.
We thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a terrible problem to have.
It really is.
No, but I've done both. I've done brand new things. You know, like I said, I like to try out some new ideas. So sometimes I'll do that. For the worst holiday, the two that we did, I did follow the same couple. And that was the first, but they are not any place outside of those anthologies. And so if we do another one, I may decide whether I want to continue with the same couple, or if I want to start something new. The Love Is All anthology that I did the first year, I did just kind of a couple, and then the next one that we did, I wrote the next two have our shared universe, but it's very, I mean, like the characters are mentioned in the other story, but it's not like events that you have to kind of know what happened. So I try to be careful, because I think the very first one that I did was very tied to my other books, and people were like, whoa, this is too much. Like, I can't even read this story without reading your previous stuff. So yeah, again, newbie author, I was still trying to figure it out. And so I think now you can have a few little Easter eggs is, I think, better for readers than like, oh God, I feel like I just missed a whole thing. So I don't want people to have that experience.
It's a fine line, right? You have to make it standalone enough that somebody can read it pleasurably, but also like, part of the reason you leave those Easter eggs, part of the reason that you write in an existing world is because I have readers who want to read that. But when I tell them, oh, remember Winston, the singing carpenter? He and the camera girl have a little thing over here. They're like, oh, okay. And that's how, that's also how, like, it's part of the covenant of being an anthology writer, is that you're going to bring your readers to the work and expose them to the other authors that you're working with. Like, that's kind of how the sausage gets made. You want to spread awareness around all of the authors that you're working with. So there has to be something that's going to pull my current readers into the story, but also it can't be so specific, right, Ro? That like your readers reading it are like, who are these people and why do I care? Yeah.
All right, please tell me there's a singing carpenter.
Oh
You have
yeah,
a
no, yeah,
Carpenter
that's the one I wrote for the
Which
blue
book
collar.
is it?
It's the one I wrote for the blue collar anthology. It is currently only available in print at the end of Opened Up. So the first book in my Exposed Dreams series is Opened Up, and the bonus little at the back of it is Dirty Demo, which is
Okay. I'm gonna have to. I feel like I need the singing carpenter. That was my.
You do. You need that in your life.
I do. That sounds hilarious.
It was super fun.
A reluctant singing carpenter, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is even better.
Is he reluctant singing or reluctant carpenter?
He has stage fright, so he loves to sing, and he sings on the job site. And the camera woman who's filming the reality show that he has become part of catches him singing, and the producers are like, follow him more. We want to get more of that. And so she has to convince a very reluctant singer that this is really what he should be doing. And yeah, it's fun and pretty
so
spicy.
next you can write about them and have him be a person on The Masked Singer or something.
Well, see, so they do continue to show up because the reality show stretches over 4 books. And so like you keep getting to see them. Like right now, he's not on the show. He's down in LA auditioning, and she's trying to get off the show to go film movies so she can be closer. Like, so you it's nice because you can kind of touch back and continue the story.
So Kelly asks, is it easier for you to write an anthology story that's part of an existing world or one that's a standalone? So Preslaysa, you said that you've only written themed ones. Were the themed ones all part, and it was your first book, this particular one. So how did you manage that?
Okay, so for Worst Holiday Ever, I took the world that I was creating in the manuscripts that I was writing, and I put that into this little short story because I wanted to get my feet wet with seeing how people would react to being in this world. So that's what I did with Worst Holiday Ever. For Worst Valentine's Day Ever, I just created something new, a new idea from scratch that wasn't related to anything else that I had, any other longer books that I had created. What would I say is easier? I would say obviously pulling from something that I've already created and worked on is easier, but I think I enjoy just sometimes I kind of, you're like you write in series like Eva was saying, and then you just kind of get tired of it, or you just want something fresh and new. So I liked just having like this clean slate with this, blank page and create something from scratch, not related to anything else that I've written or plan to publish in the future. And so I like doing that for Worst Valentine's Day Ever. But for Worst Holiday Ever, like I said, I pulled from my existing manuscripts, that world, and I just created something from there in that same story world. I did that because it felt safer for me to do, it being one of my first published writings, and I didn't want to create something from scratch on deadline and then have to think about it and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, let me just make it a little bit easier for me. And so that's what I did. So yeah.
I think it's also great for those like plot bunnies that you have in a drawer someplace. Like I have a whole bunch of Google Docs that are just like a couple of sentences, like ideas that I'll come up with. And so when I get asked to do a project or I have an opportunity to submit something, it's like, let's see what's in the drawer. Like, what can I expand on that I've been itching to do? So those projects are super fun.
Yeah, that's where I was going. There are always more books than you can write. Always.
Yes.
No matter how much time you have, there are always more books than you can write.
Yes.
Because without fail, once a week I go to the grocery store and I'm like, oh my God, this should be a book.
So that's where you get your ideas.
Can't write that fast.
So one last question about anthologies before we start wrapping up is, what do you think the appeal is for readers to read anthologies?
Oh, particularly around the holidays. I think the holidays, any holiday, and anthologies work really well because you have a lot of built-in expectation around a holiday. You have a lot of built-in nostalgia. You have built-in either the holiday you had and miss, or the holiday you wish you'd had and never got. And all of those are very like emotional punch buttons, right? Holidays are also very limited in their time frame, so they lend themselves to being told as a shorter story. Christmas, you've got like the week before, that's like a week. New Year's Eve is one night. So from a technical standpoint, when you're writing something shorter, you have to like jump into the story and jump back out, or wrap it up quickly. It helps to have like, childhood lovers reunited, or second chance romance, or I think there are just a lot of things that really make it a good mesh between, the emotions and the timing of a holiday and the length of a novella project. And I think that the thoughts just flew out of my head. So I'm going to let somebody else jump in here.
Well, I wanted to, this is sort of related. Judith asked the question, a lot of anthologies happen at Christmas. What other holidays would you choose other than Valentine's Day? And so the situations are endless. And like I said, we had started a list at one point. I don't know if we ever wrote it down, of other worst things, like worst first day at the job, or you know, we had a whole worst bachelor party, or worst wedding day, you know, like we had a bunch of ideas. I would love to do, like, well, Halloween is my favorite time of year, like, period. So I would love to do a Halloween themed, that would be fun. But also, I like to write little Friday the 13th stories and release them on Friday the 13th. And that would be kind of fun to get everybody, you know, to write a story that happens on Friday the 13th, because people have all different opinions about what it is. For me, it's a good day and it's a lucky day. And for other people, although I have to say, I went to see Trevor Noah last night, and he reminded me that our pandemic lockdown started on Friday, March 13th, 2020. And I was like, ah, no, but it's a good day. It's a good day. Don't think of it that way. So I don't know. Do you guys have any other holiday ideas? Again, maybe we should be writing these down for when we have 5 minutes to spare for another collection.
I know we did. I remember we've had conversations about holiday. I remember us being like, oh, should we do like 4th of July? Like, what are other holidays? And it's tough because not everybody universally celebrates the same holidays necessarily, but I think it's about the settings, right? Like, you know, I would love to do a rom-com that takes place in like places of worship, and maybe it's just me, but like, my religious life is so ripe for comedy. So, and then, you know, that's one of those things. It's like, well, is it a holiday because people go to different places of worship, and they go every week sometimes, and they go for holidays sometimes. Like, the branding becomes a little tricky, but there are definitely, I feel like there are definitely like universally hilarious situations where no matter what your background is, where romance could happen.
Yeah.
Well, and like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like religion is another one of those places in our life where there's a lot of meaning loaded on. There's a lot of emotions tied to it. So when you wrap in a rom-com and the romance part of it in particular, you can look at all of those things that push your buttons around the holiday, around your religion, around other things. And then the fact that they will always end with a happily ever after, I think, is extremely emotionally satisfying. Like, all of this could go wrong. Your ex-boyfriend could show up with your mother, who completely dismisses you because your new guy thought he was doing something nice by inviting your family and welcoming them to the first Christmas that you're spending together with the daughter that he refuses to acknowledge. And it can all blow up in your face, and the Christmas tree can end up on the floor, and you still talk through it like grown adults and come out whole on the other side. Like, I think seeing that on the page is like, oh, I can handle my crazy family. That's not going to happen.
Preslaysa, what do you think about the appeals of anthologies for readers?
I think the appeal of anthology for readers is that they're short. Like, we live in an age now, you know, with social media, with technology, that people read faster, they skim. And so, like, the writing has to be short, and it has to be punchy, and it has to attract their attention in whatever way that pushes their buttons. And so I think that anthologies can meet that need. Sometimes people don't have the time or the attention span to like just sit and read like a long, you know, novel. And so anthologies fill the need, I think, of our culture today, where things are a little bit more snappier, shorter, and, you know, and that's what it does.
Where moms can go hide in the bathroom for 15 minutes and get in a whole story. I'm not speaking from experience.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, we did read anthologies in our romance book club this month to prepare for this, and that question did come up, and we all basically what you said is we like that they're short, we like discovering new authors, and we like getting little snippets of worlds that we're already reading. Those are the three big things. So it was a really interesting conversation around about the appeals, and I'm glad that you feel like you can see that for your readers, that that's what we're looking for. So we just have a couple more minutes. I'm just gonna ask really quickly, like, what's up next for you all? And we've been spending this whole time on anthologies as opposed to your other books. So please let us know what we can expect from you in 2022 or beyond.
Most of my
Who's
books
going
coming
first?
out, most of my 2022 books are actually about getting away, which is the one thing that most of us haven't been able to do. They all take places in other countries. They're all about American women who are going off to have an adventure someplace. I'm somebody who loves traveling. I'm usually on a plane all the time. I have regrettably lost my status on American because I'm not traveling as much. So I think the books that I've written this year are all about sort of like taking myself to the places that I wish I could go and having the kinds of adventures that I used to have all the time before the pandemic. And I'm hoping that folks will enjoy sort of taking those journeys away as well. So the first book that I've written is called Looks Good on Paper, which is a title that Miss Eva Moore came up with because she is amazing and she is one of my plotting friends who helps me in many, many ways. And it's about
It was one of my favorite things to do. Hands down, one of my favorite things to do.
Great at. So, and this one is about a woman, an Oakland-born woman who is a paper enthusiast. She is a papyrophile, as they are called, and she wants to go on this paper tour of Europe to visit her most famous, most favorite paper makers. And unbeknownst to her, she is the pen pal of the heir to an Italian paper fortune. But she thinks she's writing to one brother, but she's writing to the other brother. It's very complicated, but also very satisfying. And it
a little
takes place in
Cyrano.
Italy. Yeah, it's a Cyrano. It takes place in Italy.
Excellent. I will look forward to it. What's up next for you, Ro?
That's a good question. Next will be a sort of a darker supernatural suspense / paranormal romance that is the follow-up to my novel Healer that came out last year. Healer followed a school counselor who takes a job at a mysterious boarding school for children who are victims of trauma and find out that they all have something a little different about them. And so I wrote the second book. Let's see, I started it like 10 years ago when I finished the first book. And so then it sat, and then I tried to pick it back up and write. So it needs a little help, but my editor loves the middle. That's always a good sign, right? When your editor likes the middle. So I'm currently revising that. I'm hoping it'll be out in March. I'll have another Magic and Mayhem Universe book out in October following my Weather Witch and her newly turned vampire boyfriend. And what else is coming next year? I have a lot of things in the burners right now. I have some stuff out on submission. I have a group project that I'm joining up with. So there's a lot of stuff that's not set in stone yet, but definitely Connected is the book that will be out in the early part of the year. I hope to have, as soon as I finish revisions and I know that it's good, then I will put up the pre-order for that.
Awesome. So I'm going to go to Preslaysa because I didn't get my question answered about if you were to star in one of your books, which one would it be?
It would probably be the book that came out this year, A Low Country Bride. I would love to star in it. Maybe, yeah. but then maybe I would get too like self-conscious. But yeah, if I had to choose one of them, that would be that one.
Well,
And
I'm in that. I'm in for that.
and I'm writing more books in that story world. So the one that I'm writing now should be coming out soon, not soon, but soon. maybe in a year or so, a little over a year. Well, it depends, but yes, I'm writing another book in that story world.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I'll look forward to both of those, the movie and the book.
Yay!
Eva, how about you? What's next for you?
I actually have a release coming up in January 25th. And the pre-order is available because the Amazon gods were smiling on me yesterday. It is a story that I started writing as, it was going to be a 12-part novella, right? 12 chapters released once a month to my newsletter. And I got through 6 and the pandemic hit. And I suddenly had 3 children and a husband all up in my working space.
Yeah.
And the creative energy got sucked to other things. I know
that's what happened with me.
Ooh, I haven't released in 2 years for reasons. So anyhow, the story is called Reclaimed Dreams, and it is no longer a novella. It has grown and turned into a full-length novel, which is hilarious because because I told people the series was done and they told me, no, it's not. The first 3 books in the series are the 3 children in the Valenti family. Their father has put the family on a reality TV show, a la HGTV, where they're renovating houses in the Bay Area, and it's called $1 Million Starter Home, which because that's what you can get out here. And so you've followed each of the 3 kids as they find their happily ever after in the frame of the show. And in the background, their parents' marriage is slowly imploding. And so a lot of people were writing me and being like, I just need to know that Joe and Dom are okay. Like, I really need to know that the parents come out of this all right. Because there's an inciting incident of grief over the loss of an adult child in the military, that kind of sets this arc of separation into motion. And so I started writing their story to tell my newsletter readers, yes, they're good. I mean, they're bad, but they're good eventually. And because people were like, how did they get here? I need to know. So it is coming. The full length story is coming out January 25th. I promise this is the real end of the Exposed to Dreams series. But it tracks their marriage from the very beginning all the way through to the present in like time slip flashbacks. Nice. So the main bulk of the story happens in the present as it overlaps the 3 novels you've already read. And then you get flashbacks to their meet cute and their first date and the proposal. And so you really get a fuller picture of this marriage. So it's the first seasoned romance I've written. It's the first time slip romance I've written. Lots of fun challenges on this one. So that will come out in the back of the print version of Roughed In, and then separately as a digital release, all on January 25th. And then I've got another book that I'm hoping to put out like June, July, which I started writing right before the pandemic hit. So it starts off as a sex toy designer who gets a great review or who gets like an award at one of these tech shows, and then the tech people actually find out what it is she's making and rescind the award. And the tech writer who covers the story, and then they kind of hook up at the conference, and then keep talking as she realizes he's the one who blew the story open and gave her all of this great publicity. And then the pandemic hits.
No,
like a month later.
Pandemic romance.
And so it's turned into a pandemic romance, forced proximity, he goes down to help her and just ends up staying. And so it's, how do you navigate a brand new relationship in a literal phone box that you cannot leave? So it's going great.
Finally.
But it's really fun, and I'm having a blast writing it. And so that should be out like June, July. And it's called Love in the Quarantines.
Oh my gosh. I
So
couldn't
good.
write a romance in the pandemic. I'd be so like, I don't want to go back to this place.
I am really
Those-
trying to get a positive filter over
Yes,
that time in
okay.
my life.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm looking forward to all of these. They sound amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Eva, thank you for helping me put this together. It was such a dream. And I'm very appreciative of all of you spending time with us, and for Ro and Eva for getting up at the crack of dawn. I think you probably want to go and take a nap at this point.
And Kilby, and Kilby.
Kilby,
We're
yeah.
all the same
You're all
time
those
zone.
too. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I apologize, Kilby, that I had somehow missed that you were a publisher. I'm gonna have to dig into that a little bit. That is so exciting. So anyways, thank you again for being here. Thank you everybody for having been here and enjoying the conversation. And again, you can buy books by all of our authors, including their backlists from Bank Square Books, and they will be signed. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And I hope you have a wonderful, not worse holiday.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Absolutely. Have a
you.
great day. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
I'm going to stop the recording.